Have you ever worked somewhere and just felt like you were spinning your wheels? Tons of meetings, tons of activity, but at the end of the day, you're not really sure what you accomplished? Yeah, you are not alone. Today, we're going to unpack a really powerful way to think about building organizations that can turn all that busy work into real, meaningful progress. Let's jump in. It really all boils down to this one question. We see smart, talented, hardworking people just struggling. And it's so easy to think, oh, maybe it's a people problem. But what if it's not? What if the problem is the system they're stuck inside of? That's the idea we're really going to dig into. And this right here just nails the problem, doesn't it? On the left, you've got activity. That's the hamster wheel. It's the back-to-back meetings, the confusing priorities, that feeling of just constant motion. It feels like you're doing a lot. But on the right, you have achievement. That's about actually delivering on the core mission, getting measurable results, and making real strategic progress. The goal, of course, is to build a bridge from that left column to the right. And here's where the light bulb really goes on. Performance gaps, more often than not, aren't a people problem. They're a design problem. Think about it. Most organizations grow over time, kind of like a garden that's never been tended. Roles and departments just pop up. They're not intentionally built or engineered to serve that core purpose, that mandate. So how in the world do you start to untangle that mess? Well, it all starts with finding your organization's North Star. You just can't design a system for success if you haven't clearly defined what success even looks like. And that, right there, is the power of a clear mandate. So what exactly are we talking about when we say mandate? This is the absolute non-negotiable reason your organization exists. For a public agency, it might literally be written into law. For a private company, it's that core strategic purpose. And listen, this isn't some fluffy vision statement that gets framed and then forgotten. No, this is the guiding principle that should drive every single decision. All right, with that North Star shining bright, it is time to draft the blueprint. This is the moment we stop saying, well, this is how we've always done it, and start asking, what's the best way to do this now? It's all about designing for your purpose, not for your past. So the framework breaks this down into 3 really critical steps. First, you analyze the work. All of it. You quantify every single task needed to fulfill that mandate. Then, second, you map out the skills. What specific talents do you need to actually do that work? And then, only then, and this is so important, you design the organizational structure to support that work, not the other way around. And this is where the whole approach just flips the script. It's about getting rid of the guesswork, the assumptions, the gut feelings about who you need and what they should be doing. Instead, you use cold, hard data. You stop guessing and you start measuring. And trust me, that's a total game changer. Just look at this. A simple workload analysis like this one can tell a whole story. Here, the amount of work that actually needs to get done to meet the mandate is at 100%. But the team's capacity to do it? It's only at 75%. See? Without this data, you're just left wondering why everyone's burnt out and projects are late. With this data, you know why. Okay, so you've used data to identify the gap. Huge step. But now what? Just knowing you have a problem isn't enough, right? You've got to figure out who does what and how everyone works together. Because without that clarity, all you have is organized chaos. And that's where so many organizations get stuck. So how do you create that kind of clarity? Well, one of the most powerful tools out there is something called a RACI matrix. It sounds technical, but it's actually a super simple framework that gets rid of a ton of confusion by defining who is responsible, who's accountable, who needs to be consulted, and who just needs to be informed. Let's make this real with an example. Okay, for the task draft report, the analyst is responsible. That's the person actually doing the work. The manager is accountable. The buck stops with them. They own the outcome. The legal team is consulted. Their input is needed. And the director is just informed. They get a heads up. See? All of a sudden, that whole, I thought you were doing that conversation just disappears. It's crystal clear. Okay, now for the fun part. You've got your data. You've got your blueprint. You have crystal clear roles. Now it's time to actually bring this thing to life. This is where we start aligning the people with the process and putting that blueprint into action. And this is about so much more than just moving boxes around on an org chart. We're talking about real, tangible actions. You rewrite job descriptions so they're directly connected to the mandate. You start hiring people based on the specific skills you know you need. You make sure everyone has the right tools to do their jobs. And you create performance indicators, KPIs, that actually measure what matters. Performance is no longer subjective. It's tied directly to the mission. But here's the thing. A brilliant redesign is great, but if it all falls apart in 6 months, what was the point? The final, and maybe most crucial piece of this whole puzzle is building a system that's not just effective today, but one that's resilient and can adapt over time. You gotta build it to last. So how do you make sure all this hard work doesn't just evaporate? Well, there are 3 key habits. First, you lock in the new processes with clear procedures and regular check-ins. Second, you become a data detective. You use analytics to keep an eye on workloads and performance so you can spot problems early. And third, you treat this as a living system. You review it every year to make sure it's still perfectly aligned with where the organization is headed. So, after all that work, the deep dive analysis, the thoughtful redesign, putting it all into action, what's the big reward? Well, it's that beautiful transformation we talked about at the very beginning. It's finally moving from the chaos of inefficient activity to the incredible clarity of effective, mission-driven achievement. And this slide just says it all, doesn't it? Look at the shift. You go from subjective decisions and total role confusion to evidence-based staffing and crystal clear accountability. Wasted effort gets transformed into efficient, meaningful delivery. This isn't just a theory. This is the real, tangible result of designing for your purpose. And what does all that add up to? Well, it's way more than just being better organized. We're talking about stronger governance, delivering better services, and creating real accountability. But maybe most importantly, it's about honoring your people by making sure their incredible talents are focused on the work that truly, truly matters. So, we'll leave you with this one last question to really think about. Take a good, honest look at your own organization. Is it a finely tuned machine truly built to achieve its purpose? Or is it maybe more of a museum of past decisions, a product of its own history? The courage to answer that question honestly, well, that right there can change absolutely everything.